From a flightless simulator at Ferris Air to a momentous meeting in an alley to the complex mind of an architect to every far sector in space and to the brilliance of the central power battery on Oa. This is the podcast that covers the adventures of all of your favorite ring slingers. This is the Emerald Echo with your hosts, Adam and the Emerald Enthusiast.
Welcome to another episode of the Emerald Echo podcast and vidcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam, and with me is the Emerald Enthusiast himself, Donnie. Donnie, how's it going?
What's up, everyone? It's the man whose ring runs on fanboy energy. It is the Emerald Enthusiast, and we're back with another episode of the Emerald Echo.
We are indeed, and there's a lot of good things happening, at least in the fictional realm of the world, and specifically with the Green Lantern Corps. So, as we know, we have a upcoming live-action Green Lantern series that is going to be airing on HBO, and it is obviously set in the new DCU, being spearheaded by James Gunn and Peter Safran. And that is, at least according to the information we have presented to us so far, scheduled to be filming mid-February, the first 2 weeks of February. It's supposed to start filming. A lot of the core players have, been cast. Obviously, Kyle Chandler playing Hal Jordan, Aaron Pierre playing John Stewart. Are the main Green Lanterns. We heard recently via, I think it was an article in Variety or one of the Hollywood trades talking to James Gunn, where they intimated that Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner would make an appearance in some of the episodes of the series.
Which I really love that idea, that we're going to get that kind of continuity throughout both the movies and the series, that they will be interconnected, and we won't have some of the chaos that we've had with the live action universes that DC has put out in recent years, because we never knew what was happening a lot of the time.
Yeah, it was all, well, we're going to do this, and then we heard nothing. And then we're going to do that, and well, that didn't fall through, that didn't happen either. So, it was a lot of, we heard a lot of announcements, but nothing. It was like, let's throw, crap against the wall and see what sticks. That was the old way of doing things. Thankfully, that is not the case anymore. We also had, several castings of people that seemed to be creations of the show. Like specific for the show that aren't in the comic books. However, recently we've gotten a rather big addition from the comic book world, arguably the Green Lantern's greatest villain, I would say. And that is Sinestro. Yes, Sinestro will be making an appearance in the series, and he will be played by actor Ulrich Thomsen. The appearance by Sinestro is said to be a recurring character. Now, Ulrich Thomsen, I know he's been in. The thing I know him most from was the very underrated HBO series Banshee. He's also been in, let's see here, Brothers. He's been in, I believe, was it I think it was The Wire, or no, The New Pope. Sorry, that was another thing from HBO. I think that I heard and I've seen a bit of him from, but I know him from Banshee, and I can tell you from the little bit that I remember, I definitely see the potential for a really good Sinestro performance. Again, depending on the material, because any actor is only good as the material he's given, right? Example: George Clooney, good actor. And then there's Batman and Robin. So, any actor's as good as the material.
That was a miscast, though. Not that I don't like him as an actor, but not every actor is fit to every role. So
he's a good actor, but so but I could definitely see Sinestro from his performance in Banshee, uh, uh, and I could definitely see a solid performance. But
He was in a movie, by the way, called Summer in '92, and he won the Robert Award for Best Actor in a Leading Role. But the reason why I bring this up is that as I was looking at his filmography, because again, I'm not very familiar with him, I was like, I saw Summer in '92, and I went SummerSlam '92, and I was like, oh no, that's not. That's where my mind went.
I would have remembered him from SummerSlam. Well, listen, Saturday night's main event is tonight, so I can see where the confusion would come in. But yeah, so from the performance that I know him from, solid actor. I can definitely see Sinestro in there for sure. What do you think of the development of I mean, obviously you say you don't really know his work, but what do you think of just the idea of Sinestro being confirmed in this?
The thing is, you can't look at this as anything except good news, okay? Because unless you're the kind of reader, and this is not a problem if you are, but Green Lantern is inherently a cosmic story. Now, we've had plenty of good stories on Earth, and obviously, a big portion of Volume 3, which is my favorite, took place on Earth. There's a lot of great stories to tell that way, but there has to be a balance. My biggest concern for Lanterns is that when I heard that it was basically going to be an Earth-based story, with Sinestro in the mix, that has to signal that there's going to be some type of balance. And we will have a cosmic influence, and possibly going forward after season 1, more of a cosmic narrative. I don't think you can take the core out of Green Lantern. That was one of my big issues with the 2011 movie. Not enough. It was too much focused on Hal Jordan and Carol Ferris and Hector Hammond. I really think this signals the larger Lantern universe, the mythos opening up. And so when I heard that, that made me so happy. Even not being that familiar with the actor, because again, there are so many essential parts of Green Lantern that can't be omitted by just keeping John and Hal on Earth.
I think, first of all, I think you're right. The Sinestro being there at least signals that there is going to be, whether it be initially in this season or down the road in future seasons or movies or what have you, there is going to be the space, sci-fi component just by virtue of having Sinestro. But I think a lot of people are over, and I could be proven wrong, but it's just my sense that they're over thinking, over worrying about the terrestrial based adventure that's in the description. Because, and the reason I say that is twofold. One, John and Hal are the protectors, or two of the protectors of Sector 2814, which is protecting Earth. That's established. So if it's a terrestrial adventure, it doesn't shock me because they're tasked with protecting Earth, right? And the reason why I don't get too, worried or fixated on that part of the description is because we also have to remember another quote from James Gunn where he said, especially in his initial announcement of the DCU slate, that the villain in Lanterns was a big piece to the overall DC landscape. Now, if that's the case, do you think it's just going to be a random mugger or murderer that two Lanterns can take on easily? Like, why would it, whatever this is, become a wider threat to the DCU if it was just, average serial killer? You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So,
well, Green Lantern does have some Earth-based villains that are very dangerous.
Right, but enough to require eventually Superman, Hawkgirl,
right.
Flash, Batman, etc., 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 to get in the mix and get involved. Like if he's saying that whatever this threat is, eventually is spilled over to the wider DC universe, it can't just be, like I said, random dude going on a killing spree. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I never got too bent out of shape over the terrestrial adventure. Also, I think the job of this series is to reacquaint audiences with Green Lantern, and to do it in a way that is different from the 2011 film. Where, look, I still enjoyed that film, right? But a large portion of the mass audience either did not or did not even see it.
Mm-hmm.
So there is going to be some reacquainting, re-education needed for the general audience.
And again, as an episodic story, this is by definition going to be very different. So a lot of different things have to be put in place for this to work. For what was it, 8 episodes, I believe?
Yeah, 8 episodes.
It's going to be season 1.
And
That's very different than a movie.
I don't think it's easy just to say, here's Lantern, and let's throw you right into a big space opera. You know what I'm saying? I think that would be too much for the general audience to absorb all at once. Like, they have to ease into it. As opposed to, here, we're going to do the Sinestro Corps War as our first season. You know what I mean? That's asking a little much.
Oh no, you can't do it. You can't do it that way. And
so
it's funny when we talk about the comics here in a few minutes. There are great entry points for Green Lantern, and I like the comics we're about to review. This is not one of them, though.
You cannot. Yeah, exactly. We're invested, so we love it. But if I was going to recommend Green Lantern as a fresh concept to a newbie, it would not be the current storyline that's going on.
Oh, it is very complicated.
It would be so long, right? So I think that's why they're leaning into the terrestrial adventure aspect of it to sort of ease audiences into all of this, right? And so again, all those are all reasons why I'm not too worried. The other thing again that I have to because I keep seeing it, and it's, I'm not going to name names, but it's there's again consternation of, oh look, this actor is 60 years old, 61, whatever. This is why are you doing this? This is not going to work. Blah, blah, blah. Look.
Well, I saw that on a lot of the objection on Reddit. I saw quite a few people saying that.
I saw that on a high-profile Green Lantern, fan, spaces area. So again, I'm not going to name names, but here's again. I think a lot of people that are in that camp are saying things like that because they see the age as being, oh, well, that's going to mean that both Sinestro and Hal Jordan are off the table after season 1 because they're 59 and 61 respectively. And also because these people that say this have this delusion that this DC universe is going to give us Hal Jordan's story from basically an adaptation from Secret Origins all the way up through what's the
Blackest Night.
Yeah. And I don't want to break anybody's bubble, okay, that thinks that, but that's not what's happening here. Hollywood doesn't do that, even with their most high-profile IPs. And I'm going to give you an example. Look at Batman. If you look at all the Batman movies we've had, the majority of them, and when I say majority, I'm speaking Batman 89 and the Dark Knight trilogy, and now Matt Reeves' The Batman. When they cite their influences and references for those movies, it's always the same crop of books. Year 1, The Long Halloween, Dark Knight Returns.
Mm-hmm.
That's always it. I've yet to see Batman go from year one to Batman Beyond on film. And you know what? It's never going to happen. Not as one consecutive story. As much as I'd like that to happen, don't get me wrong. I'm with some of these people that are Green Lantern fans that would love to go from Secret Origins all the way through to Blackest Night consecutively.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Like that would be a dream. But the reality of the situation is, it's never going to happen. So to think that you're going to get a 25-year-old actor to play Hal Jordan and go all the way through to when he is 60, it's not going to happen. And then again, if they did that, that would take so much time that we'd never get around to Jon Stewart, Guy Gardner, Kyle Rayner, Jessica Cruz, Simon Bennett. We'd never get around to these people because 20 to 30 years would be taken up by Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
So it's never.
Well, and let me ask you a question. And this is going to seem like it's unrelated, but it's not. How old were the lanterns, the human lanterns, in this latest issue, Fractured Spectrum?
Mid, at least Hal's got to be. Look, comic books are everybody's perpetually 35, but if we're going by continuity's sake, probably 40s, 50s at least.
Okay.
If I'm going from when I started reading, which was Rebirth, to now, and assuming that's all one continuity, the guy's got to be in his 40s to 50s.
Excuse me. Okay. If you picked up Fractured Spectrum without any previous knowledge, and you looked at the way, and this is not a criticism because I really like Viken Marion. To me, they all look like they're in their 20s, late 20s, maybe early 30s. But he draws them younger, much younger than what we were seeing. Let's say like Volume 3, prior to Emerald Twilight, the first part of Volume 3, when Hal had the gray streaks.
Yeah.
Their ages are whatever the writer, whatever the storyteller needs them to be.
Yeah.
And we've restarted with kind of a fresh storyline here. And even though Hal has it's been established that Hal and Carol have a long relationship, they haven't hit on so much that would make you look and say, oh yeah, Hal Jordan's definitely 50 years old, or Jon Stewart's 45 or whatever.
Yeah. Mm.
Superheroes kind of are perpetually, their ages are nebulous.
Yeah.
Whatever the time period needs them to be. And you and I have talked about it before. When Hal Jordan came back in Volume 4, when he came back, or before Volume 4, in Rebirth, how old was he? We have to assume that he was younger because of that. So this is an older version. It's a different story.
And again, though, like, who's to say? Again, this is all hypothetical because I wasn't much to my dismay. I wasn't in the writers' room when they were writing Green Lantern series. I wish I was, but James Gunn didn't invite me. So what am I going to do? It is what it is. But let's for the sake of tinfoil hat, going to put on my speculation now. Let's say that the big villain causing this murder mystery is Parallax.
Okay.
Let's say Hal gets infected and dies. Let's say John, after this season, transitions into a couple of movies, be it Justice League or what have you. And then, what if eventually they do adapt the Rebirth story? And part of Hal Jordan is recast because they need him to be younger because of the Rebirth.
Dude, that's a great point. That's an excellent point. Yeah.
You never know. Because I remember when they were casting, when we were hearing about all these characters that weren't from the comics, I remember certain people on the hell site that is Twitter. Oh, but these people aren't from the comics. It's going to be nothing like that. And I'm like, just wait. There's probably more casting to come. And sure enough, it's Sinestro from the comics. Mm-hmm. Here's an idea. Just wait.
Just wait, yeah.
Just relax. Stop making geriatric jokes. Just relax. Okay? Again, and I keep telling people on Twitter who want to have reasonable conversations, few and far between. But I stress the point that we're not going to get a consecutive 20-year story featuring Hal Jordan. It's just not going to happen. It hasn't happened with Batman, hasn't happened with Spider-Man, hasn't happened with Superman. It's not going to happen with Green Lantern. I hate to break it to anybody. That's number one. Number two, until we actually see Lanterns, as fans, all we can hope for is that they put people with talent and quality in front of and behind the camera. And so far, with lanterns on both fronts, they have. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and let me say this too. I realize that maybe it would be ideal for Hal to be in his prime. However, especially with the ring and the way that lanterns use the rings, a lot of the older, more experienced lanterns are the more dangerous ones.
Yeah.
So, and who's to say that just because somebody is 55 years old, yes, they're over the hill, that doesn't mean they're not dangerous.
Yeah. And
Bobby Lashley's almost 50. When Bobby Lashley walks to the ring, do you think he's dangerous?
and even with let's say Sinestro, right? Okay, the actor's 60, 61. But he's gonna be caked in makeup. And
exactly. And probably prosthetics.
Yeah, exactly. And here's another point. I know it's not fun to bring this up, but remember the Flash movie?
Oh.
Yeah. Remember the good parts with Michael Keaton's Batman?
I was going to say, I was like, there's one part that I remember fondly, and that's Batman.
When he went in that Russian silo when he was kicking everybody's ass?
Yes.
Michael Keaton is 70 years old. Granted, I know that was a stuntman, but there are a lot of tricks to make 59-year-old Kyle Chandler look like he's kicking some serious ass.
Right. Especially, like I said, I mean, a lot. Especially if there's a lot of fighting, like in the bigger space battles or encountering supervillains, it's going to be CGI.
So and stunt double. So at the end of the day, there are a lot of tricks to the trade that this is not an issue. Because I got news for you. If Kyle Chandler had the look and demeanor of a certain top level president of a country that you may live in, then he wouldn't have made it. So he's capable of moving around and being spry and doing whatever they need him to do.
Yeah,
I think people are just making this way bigger of a deal than it needs to be.
I would agree. I don't think the age thing is going to be a hindrance to this show.
And it's largely because they want a 20-year consecutive story featuring Hal Jordan. And that's just something that they have to get over. They're not going to get. Unless the DCU becomes like the James Bond series where they recast and it's the same continuity, they just keep going. That's the only way we're ever going to get a potential for a story like that. But there are too many Green Lanterns to just focus on one guy for 2 decades, in my opinion. So, but again, we have Green Lantern's arguably most famous adversary in the series. That's something to get excited by.
Definitely. And if they're really going to delve deeply into all of the layers of Green Lantern, that's what I really want to see. And again, it's Hal Jordan, and don't get me wrong, my favorite DC characters, Kyle's number 1, Hal and John are tied for number 2. It depends on the era as to which one I like. Those are my 3 favorite characters. But when the movie came out, one of my criticisms was that one of my biggest criticisms, is the fact that they didn't really focus on Hal fitting into the core. What I want to see from this is Hal and John not only having a relationship as partners, but at the same time, what it means to wear the ring, to be part of the millennia's worth of the Green Lantern Corps, what it means to bear the weight of carrying the ring, not just the story of one particular character.
And I was talking to somebody we were having a very cordial conversation where they were like, I would have liked to see the origin of Hal Jordan and all that. And I'm like, okay, well, 2 things. We saw that in 2011. It really didn't work for people. Like, people didn't care. Not enough people cared, I should say. 2, just because Kyle Chandler is 59 doesn't mean there can't be flashbacks to earlier times in his life. within
Ju-
the
yeah,
episode series.
give us one. To me, that's something that's going to be there. They're going to show a flashback. I would be shocked if we don't see Abin Sur, a flashback with Abin Sur at some point.
I think this would be more like, this is more of, if we're talking origin stories, this is more of a Jon Stewart origin story, because he's the younger recruit or whatever. But that doesn't preclude flashbacks to previous battles with Hal Jordan and Sinestro. We don't know. So that's my point. We don't know. So to start panicking and getting your underwear, all wound up in places that it shouldn't be, I think it's premature. I think, look, if as Green Lantern fans, if we want, let's say a Sinestro Cold War storyline, if we want to get to Blackest Night, you know what has to happen? This season has to be a success.
Yeah, they've got to leave people wanting more.
Yeah. So if you're going to sit there and criticize and hate every announcement that comes down the pipeline, and you're going to call yourself, ambassadors for the Green Lantern, you're doing all of us a disservice. Because if this doesn't work, we're not going to get any more Green Lantern. So,
this is possibly the biggest boost, and when I say this, the Lantern show could be the biggest thing to happen to the mythos since the animated series.
Yeah.
We know that and a lot of people latched onto the animated series, even though it didn't continue as long as we wanted it to.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's been, like, you and I have talked ad nauseum on this show about there being so little live action Green Lantern since that point. Over 10 years now, we're looking at this could be the thing that catapults Green Lantern's popularity again.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. There may be some differences from the comics. There probably will be more. Most every Hollywood adaptation there is.
There has to be, yeah.
But here's the thing. If the general audience latches onto this, right? If the general audience gets invested, it means more Green Lantern stuff. Whether it's exactly page for page remake of the comics or not, it doesn't matter.
And if this is a success, maybe we do get more episodes in future seasons with flashbacks with a younger Hal Jordan, and you do get to see Hal adventures.
Yeah. Now, if it's egregiously not representative of Green Lantern, like say Joker 2, then we got problems. But I don't think
you and I we'll have a ball on here. If every 5 minutes Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart break out into song, we're going to be like, yeah, this is terrible.
Yeah, definitely not song. But again, there may be quite a bit of differences because Hollywood, it's adaptation. It's not plagiarism from the comic. They're not lifting it directly, but we've got James Gunn as the co-CEO, the creative force behind all the DC projects. Given James Gunn's track record, I think it's going to be okay.
You and I talk, Guardians of the Galaxy. There were some key differences there, and yet it became a runaway hit.
But at the end of the day, he made me care about a damn talking tree and a damn talking raccoon. And before I went to see the first movie, and I'll admit I was wrong, I said this is going to be the first bomb for Marvel Studios. There's no way the general audience is going to care about a raccoon and a tree.
And that was a prevailing attitude. People were like, who are the Guardians of the Galaxy?
Tears in my eyes. By the third movie, I was crying for that damn raccoon.
Yeah.
And I'm reading the Superman trailer with the crypto. People are going nuts over crypto. I had to buy my niece one of those plush cryptos next summer or next Christmas because people are going nuts over crypto. So, I trust the guy that's spearheading this because he's had nothing but success.
If I see a plush crypto, I'll buy one and review it, and then I will send it to you because I don't want it in my house.
Hey, listen, he's gonna. Don't you worry. Just wait till the casting announcement for Nort. And that's going to be the runaway hit of the Lantern show.
There we go. There we go. Yeah. That'll be just my luck. Nort, played by Topher Grace.
Episode 8 of Lanterns, the post-credit scene is Nort. Come on, Jesus, gonna do it for Donnie. Actually,
Exactly,
good
yeah.
for me because I want to see Donnie's reaction on the show. That's what I want. So come on,
Gosh,
Jason.
yeah. Like I said, I have always devoted myself to this fandom. If it happens, I will be as objective as possible. And yes, if McFarlane makes a Nort figure, I will buy it and I will review it on my YouTube channel, and then I will send it to you.
There you go. But I digress.
You'll get a free Nort if that happens.
Well, hey, listen, I take free stuff. Note to Warner Brothers and DC. I enjoy free stuff. So,
By the way, I am so excited about the upcoming Guy Gardner figure.
yeah. So it's but back to the point. Excitement. Sinestro's coming. I can't. And again, knowing a little bit about this performer based on Banshee, I can't wait to see him as Sinestro. I think it's going to be. I think he's going to put in a performance. Remember at the end of the Green Lantern movie when we see Sinestro with the yellow ring and changes. We're finally going to get to see that Sinestro, just a different guy.
We're finally going to get to see. I tell you, it still bums me out every time I see that because there was so much potential there. I still think they should have made a sequel. I don't care if it didn't make any money. I think the second one could have. But
well, Donnie, that's why you're not an executive in Hollywood. The fact that you just said, I don't care if it makes any money.
Fish in one hand and poop in the other and see which one fills up first.
Right, exactly. So at the end of the day, be excited. And again, I'm making a plea to Green Lantern fans. Listen, you may not agree with every casting choice and every story beat, but understand this. For us to get more live action Green Lantern, for us to get more Hal Jordan, for us to get Sinestro Corps War, for us to get, Blackest Night, this needs to be a success. So as a fan, if you're a fan of the property, get behind it. Put whatever green visits you have behind you or to the side and try and get behind this thing.
And we're already having to deal with the cultist fans who are just like, no, there's only one Green Lantern and it's the one from the Snyderverse. And I'm like, you mean Yalan Gur? Because he's the only one we ever actually saw.
Even the one that filmed in the garage that never got to see the light of day? Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah. Anyway, again, point is, try and get behind it. The Lantern fans need to rally and give this every opportunity to be successful. You can't do that by whining and crying about the fact that we're not getting Hal from day 1 to day 1,000. That's just the way Hollywood works. You either want Green Lantern content. It's either we get Green Lantern content or we get nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You choose. Because our reception and our viewing numbers of this and getting it out to as much of a general audience as we can is what's going to determine whether we get more. So think about that next time any of you are making geriatric jokes or other stupidity. Simple as that. It's either successful.
And hey, just because you're a little over the hill doesn't mean you can't bring the charisma. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, and Donnie's spring chicken by compare to some, but again, 71-year-old Michael Keaton was the best part of the Flash. The end.
Yeah.
That's all in terms of news. We're not going to take a break now, and then on the other side, we'll come back and review a lot of comics. And spoiler alert, they were good. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Don't go anywhere.
What's up, everyone? It's the Emerald Enthusiast. For all of your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows, which include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast. You can check us out on Podbean, and remember to subscribe right here on YouTube. That's the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network. From the first podcast to the last.
And we're back.
Indeed we are. And we have 3 comics today to review. And I'm just going to preface this right off the bat. I loved all 3 issues. I had to do double the homework. I had to read about 6 Spider-Man issues to do a guest spot on the Spider-Man podcast that you and I both recur on. And then I had to read these books for this show. And I gotta say, unfortunately, I was disappointed by the Spider-Man books. And then the Green Lantern reading was a nice palate cleanser and a lot of fun. So I appreciated these books more so because they were a reinvigoration. That's how good they were. So yeah, I just personal aside there. But Donnie, where are we? Where are we picking up at?
We're going to be starting with Green Lantern number 17. We're going to look at 17, 18, as well as Fractured Spectrum number 1. And we're starting with an issue that opens up. It's called Planet Scream. That's what we see on the cover. And this is another installment of the Civil Core storyline.
Yeah, it picks up right after the Civil Core War, or this is it. That's what it's called. No,
yes,
yeah, the one shot that sort of merged what the main Lantern title was doing, and what Philip Kennedy Johnson was doing with the War Journal book. Right? They kind of finally brought together. So that's where we're picking up from.
Yeah. So it opens up on the Durlan ship Himota, and we see that there's unrest among the Durlans. We saw the Durlans already questioning the plans of Tharos previously, and now they're very uncomfortable with Star Shroud, aka Varen. Just to clarify here, Star Shroud, Varen, Tharos will soon be seen as Dark Star. So don't want to confuse anybody. It's two villains with 4 names that we've seen them in this run.
Right. This was wrestling. They're getting repackaged.
New gimmicks, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So we see that there's unrest. They send the Unseeing after Star Shroud, and the Unseeing also, by the way, have Jessica Cruz prisoner, and they are trying to extract information about the Resistance, and that is the Green Lanterns, of course, by using Kilowog, who has been brainwashed by fear energy. They're using him to interrogate her in a brutal scene, by the way.
Yeah, that looked like something out of The Wire. You know, remember the show The Wire? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, or like 24, when Jack Bauer used to get captured. It reminds me, but just with Kilowog, which infinitely makes it better. But unfortunately, Jessica Cruz is not in a good place at the moment.
Definitely not. But you need to remember here, one of the things that's been established is with the Source Lantern and Lord Tharos's control of the Source Lantern, the emotional spectrum has been acting in different ways than we've seen in the past. One of the things that you can see immediately about this is that Kilowog's uniform still has the symbol of the Green Lantern, even though it's yellow. So it's not the type of infection we see when somebody is chosen by the ring or has a ring forced on them and they're part of that core. Right. Kilowog is still in there somewhere, but the way the emotional spectrum has been manipulated by Lord Tharos. And remember, okay, he fell into the battery, the yellow battery on Korugar.
Yeah.
And the battery actually spoke to him. Now, I don't know if that's parallax or for whatever reason the battery itself decided to speak. But it used him to house the energy as a way of self-preservation. Right. And so that's why we see Kilowog. We saw him before. We saw him attack John. That's why we see him now doing the bidding here of the Unseeing and interrogating Jessica.
Right. And that comes into play later because she's able to use that sort of scenario.
Well, we see something big in the next issue.
Yeah.
And that's Jeremy Adams. I felt bad for the guy because he's had so much to cram into these issues, and there's been backup stories and outside forces. Again, we talked about some of the crossovers that he's had to integrate into this series. He's got to felt he at points he's had to have felt a little claustrophobic, with the storytelling, because you can tell he has so many grand ideas, and there's points when things are crammed in, and you can tell he really wants to say something, and he wishes he had more pages to say.
At this point, we're finally seeing him sort of be sort of freed, and it's just focusing on the story that he wants to tell. Like this, this doesn't have any tie-in. There's no really backup feed. This is just all his story. So finally we're getting back to that way, and I think we're seeing that, right?
Yeah.
Bear itself on the story. There was a lot here.
There's a lot, and I will say there are questions that I really want answered, but what I've seen with Jeremy Adams is that he employs that writing style of pose a couple of other questions before I answer this question. There are a couple things that, like I said, kind of bother me at this point that we haven't gotten answers for, but what we are getting is so good.
Yeah.
I'm really pleased with where we are, even though I want to know more.
You're so wrapped up in what's going on, and it's not just what Hal and John are doing, right? We now have the wrinkle of what's happening with Jessica and Kilowog, and what's also, I think it was this issue where we first see we see a little bit of Kelly and I don't know.
And Ellie, yes, together working as a team.
Yeah.
I like that character development too, because you and I have talked in the past about Jeff Thorne had some good development with Kelly, but we really didn't know who Kelly was at all before that run.
Right.
And I think she still needs to be developed. I told you that she was one of the few Green Lantern characters I was kind of on the fence about her. But I like where she's going now, even though we've only seen kind of bits and pieces of it.
So what I mean is that's the cool part of this, is that we're getting. I know there's a new Green Lantern Corps book coming, but the way this is structured, how a lot of the different Green Lanterns have their own kind of story going on in the grander narrative. I'm invested in every time the scene switches between lanterns and situations, I'm equally as invested. I'm never taken out of the story once. I'm fully I want to see what happens with Kelly and Ellie, right? And then I want to see what Kyle's going through, and and what Jessica is going through. And so I want it all. It's not just Hal and John are off the page, so I don't care. I'm invested in everything.
So Jadestone, remember we talked about the new rings that were created on Earth. Jadestone has now brought them to Oa.
Yeah.
And these rings are not connected to the Source Lantern. That's really important, because remember earlier in the series we saw the Resistance Lanterns on Oa moving around and trying not to use their rings because they were connected to the Source Lantern. These rings are not connected to that. So we can see
back.
We can see the tide starting to turn now. One of the people who has shown up on Oa is Alan Scott. And so there's a big battle raging involving Star Shroud, the Green Lanterns. Eventually, Dark Star shows up. But interestingly enough, Alan has a battle in the middle of a larger battle with the Unseen.
Yeah.
And I'm still not exactly sure what happened to them. They were reduced to skeletons, but it didn't really look like Alan was the one who did that. He was fighting with them, but he didn't look like he was using lethal force, like he was trying to incinerate them.
Right. I don't think so either.
But they were they were saying, it's beautiful, talking about the Star Heart. And I'm like, so did the Star Heart somehow take their essence or something? Because whatever it was, all three of them at the same time were reduced to these smoking skeletons.
That's how it seemed. There was some sort of, like you were saying,
It was something beyond just the battle itself. It wasn't just like a ring blast or something.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't. I don't think it was. It was what Alan was doing that necessarily caused that. So again, that's something that maybe will get answered. But I do like seeing Alan Scott with the rest of the guys, even though he's sort of his own.
Yeah, I mean, he still belongs here.
It's
you
like,
know,
it's
even
like,
you know.
like that. And again, to go back to the age thing. But it's like when that your grandpa comes over and it's like, hey, and you spend some time with the grandkids. And it's nice.
I love the beard too. I've gotten so used to the beard. So
yeah, it's a good look for him. I like it. I dig it. Can you imagine if he gets cast in Lanterns, the shitstorm on the internet that would cause? Because if Hal's 59, how old are they going to go with Alan Scott casting? Michael Keaton's going to come into the DCU as Alan Scott. They're going to change his role.
One of the key points that we see in this issue is that Star Shroud enters the Source Lantern, and he's after the Source Ring. Now, this is a type of ring that will allow him to control the Source Lantern.
Right.
Interestingly enough, too, we see, and I don't remember whether it was this issue or the next issue, but there are Guardians, or at least that it's what looked like Guardians inside the Source Lantern.
Mm.
So that was interesting. We actually do see Guardians in the Fractured Spectrum issue, but anyway. So the scene turns. Hal and John are still being chased by Mogo, who, remember from previous issues, he's a Red Lantern.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's still a Red Lantern, it all of a sudden dawns on Hal. He's like, wait a minute, if he's still a Red Lantern, that must mean that Tharos is still alive.
Yeah, because they thought he was dead at this point.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So, and then now in a really fun moment, we see that Sinestro finally shows up into the fray. And man, did I like he shows up.
Every time he shows up, it's just like, and again, I use the wrestling analogy just because Jeremy Adams is a huge fan, and we know because we had him on and he talked about it. But Sinestro showing up, especially what he does, what you see him do, it's like when the glass breaks and Stone Cold comes sauntering down with an attitude and he's all pissed off. That's what basically Sinestro is doing. Yeah.
He was, just so angry, and he slams into Mogo, slams through Mogo.
He absorbs his rage.
Exactly, and absorbs all the energy. So now, I'm thinking to myself, I was like, remember when Sinestro was the host for Parallax? Yeah. And he had, the Parallax robes and everything? I'm like, I wonder if he's now going to be kind of a Red Lantern counterpart to that, because he not only had his own rage, now he has a planet full of rage. And he's absorbed all of that. So when we see him, is he eventually going to be so powered up like that he's going to be, I guess kind of the avatar of rage?
Sinestro's been in more factions than X-Pac. if you think about it, he's been a Green Lantern. Obviously he's the Sinestro Corps leader, so he's been that, and now Red Lantern, right? So he's making his way through the factions.
And so you talked about Kyle Rayner earlier.
Yeah, I mentioned
the big moment that we have been waiting for finally arrives. So Kyle has been suffering psychologically due to the chaos with the emotional spectrum. And we've seen this we've seen the colors moving through his costume. We've seen him, kind of babbling off in corners to himself. And all of a sudden he senses what's going on with the Source Lantern, and he stands up, and he was like, I have to save the emotional spectrum. And it's funny that you talk about wrestling, because when he stands up and all of a sudden he turns into a White Lantern, it made me think about, Roman Reigns in the corner going, ooh, ah, like right before he spears somebody. He's like, now's my time. Ooh, ah. And so he flies into the Source Lantern to do battle with Star Shroud.
And there's that page where he does stand up, and you see the white lantern, the white uniform. It looks so good. Like, it was just it's such a good, that look for him just works. I love him as the White Lantern. It's all
Well, anyway, I'll get to a question about that in just a moment. But that's where things kind of end. Is that inside the Source Lantern, we see these beings that seem to be the Guardians, and that Star Shroud is siphoning energy from them inside the Source Lantern.
Yeah, which is pretty harrowing if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Being stuck inside a Source Lantern and then having the energy and life force sucked out of you, that's pretty insane.
Well, now remember in the Jeffrey Thorne run, we saw that the Guardians say they only take like bodily form because when they decide they want to.
Yeah.
That they're mostly like an energy. So I was wondering, I was like, is that where they've been this whole time? Is inside the Source Lantern. However, we kind of got a different answer to that later on that we'll talk about than I thought we would get.
I found another parallel. When we get to the Guardians, when we talk about Fractured Spectrum, I'll bring up the connection that I made. But yeah.
Okay. So let's jump on to issue number 18 now, and let's just rate these at the end.
Yeah, because it's all one big story.
Yeah, so we get a full-on war with the Dark Star now, who we see that Tharo says not only does he want to rule, he wants to be worshipped.
Yeah, he's got
a god complex, the very definition of a god complex.
Sounds like somebody in the real world, which I won't mention.
It's not so fun when you can't cancel a series.
It looks like luck fleas. Same color. Anyway, continue.
Now, in the mix of this, here's a question that I have. We see among the Resistance, Saint Walker. Not only do we see Saint Walker, he's powered up, and I'm like, okay. First of all, I'm like, how is his ring working? Did he smuggle it in, and how is all of a sudden how is he powered up here? Also, I will say, and I don't have an answer to this, but an upcoming issue, I think it's Green Lantern Corps. I'm pretty sure it's Green Lantern Corps. He's on the cover, and he is a Green Lantern, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. So not only do I have a question here, I'm going to have lots of questions about that.
I have an answer. It's not the one you're looking for, but here's my answer, and I don't know if we'll be able to do it because it's not dependent on me. But I think all your questions suggest to me that we have to try and get Jeremy Adams back on our show.
Yeah.
That's the answer I have for you. So
you don't know how many times I've picked up my phone to like text the guy, and I'm like, no, don't bother him.
See if you can text him to come back on our show. We can ask him these questions. That's what I would say to you.
But I wonder. I'm like, so how did he get that ring? He's on Oa. How did he get it there with him? Because we know that in proximity to Green Lantern rings, it activates the higher functions of the Blue Lantern rings, and it also supercharges Green Lantern rings.
It's all about hope, you see. So he willed it into his hope.
Okay.
Listen, I'm pulling that up, where. I have no idea. I
just noticed that. And I was like, wait a minute. How in the world is he using his ring? And how did he get it there?
Suspension of disbelief. It is comic books after all. Just go with it, Donnie.
So, speaking of, the Dark Star unleashes the Radiant Dead from his ring, and man, is this a horrific scene. There's like these giant tendrils, like this horrific octopus.
And remember what those tentacles reminded me of?
What?
And remember in Man of Steel when Superman was battling the world engine, whatever it was?
Yes. Yeah.
It kind of reminded me like that, but without the poo-poo filter that Zack Snyder uses.
So Jessica is finally able to break Kilowog's control, and I really like this angle of the story because the way Jessica encounters fear is different than that of other Green Lanterns. Like with other Green Lanterns, it's kind of like the way that they tackle fear. It's like having an injury and like rehabbing it and getting over the injury. With Jessica, it's more of, she has some type of like bodily difference that she has to learn to live with it. She has to make space for it.
Right.
And so she has to manage something that's a health problem instead of just, completely recovering from the health problem. She's learned to live with that, and she is able to integrate that. And in doing so, she's able to kind of carve out a psychological path to Kilowog, and she hits him with a wave of will. And that snaps him back into reality.
To what you were saying about him still having the Green Lantern symbol, he's not fully sort of corrupted by the other entity.
No,
right?
it's not like he joined the Sinestro Corps.
Yeah, and so that's why she was able to use that, because he was she even made note of, if he was fully engulfed in the Sinestro Corps, she wouldn't have been able to battle him. Like she wouldn't have had the strength.
Right.
So.
But I think she, remember, she's been in the Sinestro Corps. She was, she was there for.
She even called it out that she wouldn't have been able to take him on,
right?
If he had fully been,
She was uniquely designed as a character to do what she did here.
Yeah, right. And I think the way she processes like fear is all her, like you were saying, trying to manage. It's all her managing her anxiety, right? And how that's baked into her character.
Right. It's not overcoming it as much as it is managing it and learning to live with it.
I don't think you can ever, somebody that struggles with anxiety, I don't know if they ever, I could be misspeaking, but I know when I had anxiety issues, it's never overcoming it, because they're always in the back of your head. He's just managing when it crops up, right?
Right.
So, but I love that that's baked into Jessica's character, and that informs how she uses the ring and all facets of her, how she goes about things. Yeah, and I really dig that, and I really dig that Jeremy Adams is playing with that as well, and hasn't just forgot about it and left it to the wayside.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that worked with that scene with Kilowog using fear energy to interrogate her. The fact that she's able to wade through it,
right?
She's uniquely qualified to do what she did, and I think that was a brilliant use of the character by Jeremy Adams.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, speaking of other characters, Kyle Rayner again still battling the Star Shroud here. He hits him with a white lantern construct sword inside the Source Lantern.
That was a great image. I love him with the sword.
I love that sword.
I'm going to take a page out of your book. McFarlane, make a figure of that.
Man, great.
I knew you'd agree with that. If you don't agree about McFarlane making a figure, then I need to get you to the doctor, because there would be something wrong. That's how I know there's something not right with you. If you say, no, I don't want to figure that, then I'd be concerned.
So we also see an encounter between.
Just to let our listeners
know. Go ahead.
If Donnie ever posts on Facebook or Blue Sky or Instagram that he doesn't want a figure, consider calling the FBI. He may be captured.
You see something like that, and yeah, I'm in trouble.
That may be
somebody come after me,
alerting you to help.
Yeah. So we also see an encounter. This is the first time we see both Dark Star and Star Shroud encounter one another. By the way, Tharos is Varen's uncle. We saw confirmation on that they're actually related. However, now that they're both powered up, absolute power corrupts absolutely. They go at it because they both want, they both have their own goals and their own goals for their power.
They do team up temporarily, although.
Temporarily, yes. However,
that's not the tag team that I would want to.
Speaking of, so we see that the Green Lanterns, they try to push the villains through one of the Radiant Dead rifts, because there's this kind of rift in time and space.
Yeah.
And they're initially not able to do it, but they get reinforcements with Kilowog and Jessica Cruz.
Yeah. It was so good. It was so nice to see Kilowog back in green.
And he was ready to fight too. He was hacked off.
When is he not ready to fight? That's his default setting. He's all right. Let me get something's ass.
So once they're able to do that, Kyle closes the rift. Now, again, at this point, he's still the White Lantern. Yeah. And that kind of healing ability to heal things obviously is on display here, because he just kind of snaps his fingers and the rifts are closed.
Yeah.
However, something very important happens on the other side of the rift. Star Shroud and Dark Star see somebody, and they're both terrified of whoever this is. We don't get an answer to who that is. We don't actually get it in the other issue either.
That was the character on the throne, right? It was.
Yes. And I'm guessing that that's Olgren.
Oh.
Because I'm like, who else would like fit? I mean, there are kind of like a lot of dark god characters in DC that I could think of, but I'm like, who would they know that would cause that level of fear from them?
Yeah, at one point I thought it was Atrocitus, but then I was like, no, that's not him.
It's no, whoever this is. This is somebody again that looked like it was more like mystical and godlike than just Atrocitus. So we also see two other important story points here. Number one, the Predator, and I mean, the emotional entity, expresses its love for Carol.
Yeah.
And Carol rejects that, and I think that's important here because the way that love has been portrayed with the Star Sapphires in the past, number one, it's been a little inconsistent, but it's also been a very kind of possessive, manipulative kind of love at points. And Carol's relationship to this is that she's now choosing the ring and choosing to be a hero. And so the Predator's like, you have this strength because of me. And she's like, absolutely not. I have this now. I have this power. I have this confidence because of me.
Right, yeah.
And then we see a very interesting scene. Sorrow has been, when I say Sorrow, for those people, Sorrow, the Sorrow Lantern, I'm still not exactly sure if they're referring to him as both or one or the other. Anyway, Nathan Broom, he is somewhere going into this spooky castle, and the person that he meets there, someone I haven't seen in a very long time, Starbreaker.
Mm.
So that's going to be an interesting part of the story going forward.
Right, how that works, yeah. Especially given...
Because he's somebody who can absorb energies.
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting to see like how he is aligned with Nathan and like what their goals are going to be.
Yeah, because right now he just seems to want to get revenge on Hal and Carol. That seems to be his, modus operandi. So we'll see. We'll see how that shakes out and how that union comes into play for sure.
All right, so now we're going to hop over to Fractured Spectrum number 1.
And this is to clarify. This is basically the start of a new arc.
Right. And it even says like this is the start of a new epic.
Yeah.
So the Green Lantern Corps, they are victorious from the previous issue. And the Guardians of the Universe are back. So I think it's safe to assume that the little beings that we saw in the Source Land...
They're not the old one. They're not the original one.
They're not the old... And that's what... Okay, so first of all, I was like, okay, well, where did the old ones go? And why?
Are they dead?
Get an answer to that. The other thing is these new Guardians, they have their old robes, but they have the core symbols of different cores on them.
Yeah.
So we don't get it... And there's so much here. And again, this is why I say that, Jeremy Adams has got to feel, I think, claustrophobic at times because you can tell he wants to hit beats and he does it, but it's like, you don't get all the answer to what you would like at some points.
Well, I mean, the positive is that now he's going to have 2 books to play with, right?
Right.
So that he could, there's more to say. But interesting, seeing those new, younger, so to speak, Guardians. It reminded me of Grogu in The Mandalorian.
Right.
Not as cute, but still, still.
Yeah. Because Grogu's 50 years old, but looks like a baby. But yeah, these Guardians look, these are younger looking Guardians.
Yeah, like these, I wouldn't buy a plushie of the young, per se, of the younger Guardians, but, Anyway.
Interestingly enough, too, I've got another question about this. Okay, so Jessica... We see that Jessica has kind of assumed some type of role, and I don't know if it was just for that gathering
Yeah, I was
or
like,
if
was she a priest? She felt very priestly.
yeah, she had a robe on that looked like
Yeah,
the Guardians, and she is like she was up in what looked like a pulpit,
yeah.
and was like talking like that, like a politician giving a speech, or
The
a.
mask given by Jessica Cruz, just throwing that out there.
And so it was really interesting to see. I'm like, well, this seems like a departure for her.
Yeah,
Got a lot of promise. I like this idea. But what really got me was I'm looking around and the room seemed to be full of Green Lanterns.
yeah,
Now, previously we were told that the lantern on Earth was going to be the battery that was going to basically help rebuild the Green Lantern Corps. So where did those rings come from? Were the Guardians able to I guess change the energy to make those rings work again? Because remember at the previous issue we saw that the Source Lantern was destroyed in the battle with Kyle.
right.
So where did all of these working Green Lantern rings come from?
Well,
It couldn't have been from Earth because remember we were told that it was going to take some time for that mechanism connected to the battery on Earth to make rings.
right, but how much time? Note that they never specified how much time, and how much time has actually passed between.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah,
that conversation between Tom and Hal, right? So
yeah, it could be a jump. Could be a jump in time. Sure.
could be a time. It could be a time jump, given that it's the start of a new epic, as the book implies, right? So you just don't know, but that's what came to my mind.
Now I want to talk about my favorite moment of this issue, and that is we see that Guy has been doing research
That's
about the Book of Oa, and evidently he's been doing it for a very, very long time. Which I don't think he could possibly get through everything, but he's been doing research, and he says that if you look through the Eye of Krona, which by the way he picked up in those backup minis, those little backup stories. Remember when he was trying to arrest Lobo?
Yeah.
If you look through the Eye of Krona, that there are 6 other versions of the Book of Oa that you can see, each of which bear a subsequent other Lantern Corps symbol. Now, I don't know what that means exactly, but the possibilities are endless, because I'm like, are we going to see past events, maybe how they were translated by other members of other corps, and see a retelling of stories? Like, okay, a big event happens and we know it from the Green Lantern's perspective, but now we'll see it from Larfleeze's perspective, or we'll see it from Indigo One's perspective.
It's an interesting idea, yeah.
But again, I don't want to give anybody any idea that's just me.
Yeah, we don't know exactly
giving my ideas about what might happen.
Nobody tells us what's happening, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Nobody gives us inside scoop on the story, so it's all speculation. But interesting idea for sure.
So, but I just can't wait to see where that goes. The idea that there are kind of books within the book, I guess, and there are different methods or different versions of the Book of Oa. So.
One of the interesting things within that revelation was the scene in Guy's apartment when those new guardians, they're like, what is this? They're so confused by the mess, and so Guy, Hal, John, and Kyle are there, and they're looking for copies of the pages that Guy was studying, and there was the part when he's like, "Tell me you made copies," and he's like, "Of course I did. I'm not an idiot." And the other 3 all look back at him like, "Really? You're not an idiot?" But that was so fun. I couldn't stop laughing at that. Yeah. I thought that was hilarious.
For those of you who don't know, he swapped out a fake and took the actual Book of Oa to his apartment that he hid in the back of his closet amongst his dirty socks and underwear and stuff, which is a very Guy Gardner thing to do.
So I thought that was just the interaction between the 4 of them and the look back of the 3 of them. That was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. Um, and and yeah, and now that you're talking about the different pages, and chapters within of the book and all that, would it be nice if DC made a prop of like the Book of Alon, like a that'd be good. I'd buy one,
Oh my gosh, I'd buy a couple. Oh, man, now
and I
see,
could actually add some of the stories in there. That'd be cool.
it's
That'd
funny.
be
I was talking with a collector on TikTok. His name is LT. And he's a huge McFarlane collector, and he has all of the Batman cowls that you have behind you there from the
yeah,
McFarlane.
yeah,
Okay, he has all of them, and I was like, okay, so and he does reviews. He does McFarlane reviews. I'm like, look, you tell Todd Father that I want Green Lantern rings like that. All the different Green Lantern rings. He was like, that would be really cool. I'm
yeah.
like, but just tell him I want that.
Yeah, that would be pretty. If they came with like their own mini stand like that, and
Right?
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Wouldn't that be cool?
I'd buy them
All right.
because I
So
have the room in the world, which is not true at all. But I'd buy them.
so now we get on Oa, we get the arrival of the Sorrow Lantern. And if I can kind of describe this scene in wrestling nomenclature, so to get somebody over,
Yeah,
somebody else has to do a job.
yeah.
And in this case, the guy doing the job is Guy Gardner.
Of
And the
course,
Sorrow Lantern shows up and makes him look like one of the Mulkey brothers
it made it look
because
like
he shows up and just jobs Guy out. I mean,
a,
the Guy is no match for him at all. And I'm like, wow. So if he's up against the however you want to say this, either the right person or the wrong person, he can really call on their sorrow and make them weak.
yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see. Like, I thought about every Green Lantern. With
Works.
with Kyle, there's the death of Alexandra DeWitt.
Yeah.
With John, there's the destruction of Xanchi. With Hal, of course, his father being killed. There's all these things that cause them extreme sorrow in their lives. Can the Sorrow Lantern tap into that
Seems
and make them weak too? How the way that he seemed to do to Guy Gardner.
if he can, what like all I kept thinking when those pages were playing out was that if this is played right, if this character is played right, he could become one of the preeminent villains for Green Lantern.
Yeah,
in the mythology. Like if it's done,
I think now the thing now he is vastly outnumbered at this point because there seems to be a restored Green Lantern Corps.
yeah, but even still, if he can tap into their sorrows and really play those up, as he's battling them, that could be a dangerous. Yeah. He could be a dangerous force.
Well, and it's like, and I've said, I've told you for years, I've wanted to see a character like this because he represents, we have an emotional spectrum. He's kind of a crack, an aberration in the spectrum. And if sorrow continues to grow, it threatens the spectrum itself.
Yeah, yeah. And the Guardians were even talking in those terms, right? Like if somebody like that has the book,
yeah. So, and that's what I wonder with Starbreaker. I'm like, is he going to use that power to maybe siphon that kind of energy out of people and make his own battery? Because Guy Gardner made mention of that, like he wants his own battery.
Yeah, could be.
Now, I have a few questions. Okay, the one that bothered me the most about this is that Kyle is a Green Lantern again. So my question is, we saw him as a White Lantern in the previous issue, and now he's back to green. And so I'm like, now is this something he can now can he tap into the White Lantern power and then go back to being green?
That's what I got.
Okay. Because we never really he never said anything about I can change back now.
He's tapped into all four at one point, right? Like he's been part of. He's had brushes with all of them, or not all four.
Well, yeah, he learned to, in New Guardians, Green Lantern New Guardians, he learned to master each of the emotions of the emotional spectrum. So he trained in that.
Yeah, which is why it caused him when it was on the fritz, was why it caused him so.
Right.
So hypothetically, if what we're inferring is correct, he could, whenever he needs to, tap into whatever particular emotion of the spectrum
Yeah.
and change into those, hypothetical. So, which would be interesting.
Yeah, and so this issue ends with the Green Lanterns again united once again, going after the Sorrow Lantern because the Sorrow Lantern takes the Book of Oa.
Yeah, he's got the book, and
because, like I said, he jobbed out Guy Gardner. He got the pen 1, 2, 3, tossed him out of the ring, and then took the belt basically.
Yeah, and walked out. Yeah, exactly. He's the Kevin Owens of the current run. And he took the good belt, not the shitty looking one.
He should come out with a shirt that says "Sorrow Lantern is right."
I thought, Jeremy Adams, if you're watching this, you want to do
it. Or just Nathan is right, or something like that. You know what? I'm gonna text him that.
Nathan 16.
Oh, I had so much fun with these issues. One other thing I will say, though, before we get to our ratings, I'm still not sure about, and I actually talked to Dan from the Lantern Cast on this, well, from Mosaic Comics, formerly on the Lantern Cast, but how did Nathan's ring form itself? Because it was just seemingly just a random object that somehow was infused with his sorrow, and all of a sudden it's acting like a power ring.
That question I have no answer for, and I can't even hazard a guess.
And at this point, I would think we'd get the answer, but I haven't got my answer yet. But maybe we'll get it soon.
I think we just got to let the story happen. I think we'll get our answers. If not, hopefully Jeremy Adams will come back and and share some thoughts and details with us. But we'll see. Hopefully we can arrange that. But yeah, I love these issues so much. I was so engrossed in every single one, to the point where, as you know, currently I'm collecting Green Lantern digitally.
Mm-hmm.
I am on the verge of re-adding it to my physical pull list, which would require me to move a couple titles that are on my physical pull list to my digital pull list.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm considering potentially moving one or two Batman titles to my digital pull list, you've done a good job, because I'm loving this story so much. I'm like, damn, I really want to collect this physically, and I can still pick up a copy of Fractured Spectrum and start from there, as opposed to just I'm not gonna go back and collect every single one that I've bought digitally, because bought is not a word. Bought. I'm not gonna go back and collect every single one, from 1 to 18 or 1 to whatever, because I already have them all digitally. So I'm not gonna do that. But I could start from Fractured Spectrum and go from there.
Yeah.
And I'm seriously considering it, because I really love these issues so much, and I'm loving the direction of the story. It just brings back memories of from Rebirth onward. Like, this is conjuring up feelings that I had back then when things were really good, and so
this book, it gives you feelings, huh?
Yeah, it's in the feels, as the kids would say, or said 2 weeks ago.
I would buy a T-shirt that said that too. Green Lantern gives me feelings.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, you could always make a T-shirt, because by the time DC puts that out, God knows.
Maybe I'll get my wife to do that for my birthday. Green Lantern gives me feelings.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and have the lettering of have the letters on the shirt be each the color of each one of the rings. And that would be cool. See,
it totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, of course it does. Everything we talk about whatever we say makes sense here. Let's just pretend it does.
Well, we'll see how many people know who the Mulkey brothers are.
Yeah,
that made it make sense to everybody.
But no, these issues were fantastic, thoroughly engrossing. Even though they're not officially Green Lantern Corps books, I feel that everybody had a role to play and had an important part to the puzzle. And so I'll go ahead and do my rating first and go against the grain. For the 3 issues, I'm going to give a 5 for story and a 4.5 for arts. The only reason I'm giving a 4.5, and again, I love V.K. Marion's work. I really do. The only thing that I'm sort of knocking half a point is because, again, like you said, we went through Green Lantern 17 and 18, and they don't look like Hal and John don't look like they're in their 20s, and then suddenly in Fractured Spectrum they look like they've been de-aged.
Yeah.
By about 15 or so years. So that's the only minor knock I'm giving it. But other than that, fantastic stuff. What's your ratings?
Well, I'm gonna kind of reverse those, and I'm gonna give the art a 5, and I especially like the way V.K. Marion draws Kyle Rayner. I love the way he draws his.
Absolutely,
it's
like
beautiful.
If he comes back for another Green Lantern book, I'd
beautiful.
welcome it for sure.
And the only reason I'm gonna knock just a little bit off for the story is, again, by the time we reach Fractured Spectrum, there's a couple things I really would have liked answers for at this point. We still may get at the end, but I mean, what we've gotten is absolutely gorgeous, and I love the idea of some of these concepts going forward.
That's why I didn't take any points off of the story, because even though I want the same answers that you want, everything else they gave me was so good that I'm like, it's just amazing.
I'm impatient,
It was
a little more impatient because I'm old. I'm like, give me answers now.
I'm not that much. I'm not that much younger than you. I mean, technically, numbers wise, I am, but you see the gray in the school team, it's starting to come.
Yeah.
And I blame the Leafs for that, so damn you. But I guess, no, but it's just fantastic stuff. Again, I'm going to reiterate this before we give our social media plugs. Despite you may not agree with every casting decision or story point if it's a comic book, but right now is a great time to be a Green Lantern fan. If you are a legitimate Green Lantern fan, this is the best of times.
Yeah.
And the last time it was this good was probably what? A decade and a bit ago?
Yeah. It feels like, we talk about like the start of Volume 4.
Yeah. That's what it feels like, yeah.
Yeah.
This is where we are. And enjoy it. Look, we all have our little grievances. We've aired some of them today with the story about wanting answers. But at the end of the day, this is good stuff. Embrace it. Find something from it to support it, because supporting these books, supporting this upcoming show is only going to give us more Green Lantern content. Mm-hmm. And that's what we all want at the end of the day. If we're true Green Lantern fans, that's what we all want.
Yeah.
So that's my parting message. But that's it for this show. It was a blast. It's always fun to sit down with you, Donnie, every month and do this. This was I think this was our first one of 2025, wasn't it?
Yes, we got one in before Christmas, if I remember. Or no, it was the 28th or 29th. That's when we actually recorded. But yeah, this is our first one of the year. Obviously, we will have more. Yeah, and I'm excited to tackle all of these books that are coming.
We're going to have a lot of books to talk about. We're going to have, the first looks from the filming from the show, which is going to be fun. At some point probably late this year, we're going to get a teaser trailer for the show. That's going to be fun to break down. So we've got a lot of good stuff coming up, specifically on this show, but on all the shows on this network. We've got some good episodes in the can that are coming, so stay tuned. But if in the meantime, before Donnie and I sit down again, if you want to contact us on social media, where can you do that? So Donnie, since you've made an addendum to your social media practices, I'll let you go first.
Well, I have parked my Twitter account for I don't know how long. I'm no longer using that platform due to some recent events. However, you can find me on Blue Sky and Reddit and Facebook and, of course, YouTube as the Emerald Enthusiast. Let's talk comics. Let's talk collectibles. Let's talk Green Lantern.
Yes, and I'm still on X for now, but in solidarity with Donnie, I'm just going to say I will put, and I don't know the exact handle because I'm still trying to cultivate it and use it more, but I will put my Blue Sky along with Donnie's link in the description. So follow me there. Let's prop up my Blue Sky account and kick the muskrat to the curb as much as we can. Because the more people I get on, if I can get enough of the people that I have on X on my Blue Sky, I'll just archive my X account until he's no longer running it. But so I'll post a link to my Blue Sky in the description. We also have the Facebook group, which of course will be linked in the description below. So if you want to carry on the conversation on Facebook, you can there as well. But until next time, remember, the Green Lantern and the Green Lantern Corps are forever. From the first time they try to make their way through Guy Gardner's messy apartment to the last. So long, everybody.
So long, everyone.